Hi, everybody. Master Toby Milroy here again, publisher for Martial Arts World News Magazine. And thanks so much for watching Martial Arts Business Innovations. It really does help us out a lot if you click like and subscribe and maybe even hit the bell notification icon on your screen right now. It does help sort of goose the YouTube and the Facebook algorithm and help this video reach more school operators who we might be able to help. So please go ahead and like and subscribe and do all that stuff. Hit the notification bell so that you get notified anytime we post new content. We're really working hard to speak with some of the most successful school operators in the world and bring you some of the biggest innovations in running your martial arts business. So thanks so much. Hit the notification and bell icon and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Welcome to Martial Arts Industry Innovations, presented by Martial Arts World News Magazine. Here, you'll get the latest news and information about the martial arts industry and discover the latest tools, tactics, innovations, business systems, teaching strategies, and much more to help you grow your school, career, or martial arts business. You'll also hear from some of the most successful school owners, innovators, instructors, industry influencers, and thought leaders in the world, sharing proven strategies and solutions to take your martial arts school or business to new heights. Join our mission at Martial Arts World News Magazine to raise the standards of martial arts business professionalism throughout the world.
Hey, we made it. Hey, everybody. Master Toby Milroy here, publisher for Martial Arts World News Magazine. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We're running a couple of minutes behind, so hopefully we're okay with all that. Today, our very special guest are Grandmaster Stephen Oliver and Grandmaster Jeff Smith, who've just sort of coming off of a pretty successful event that they had in Virginia Beach with their martial arts wealth group, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys, for jumping on with us. And we were just lamenting the weather. It's 97 here today for the first time this season, and you guys are dealing with snow. So
snow yesterday and probably sunny and hot tomorrow. So typical Colorado.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. So you guys so let's start at the beginning for everybody. Again, I never like to assume that everybody knows what's going on, right? The industry has a bunch of little subdivisions, and they don't often talk to each other. So you guys. Part of what we're talking about in the event is the Martial Arts Wealth group. Let's start there. What's that? What's it all about? Who is it? Who is it for? Who isn't it for? And then we can talk about the event.
Well, I mean, Toby, as you know, going all the way back to our debacle and the exciting days with NABNA. Before that, I was running a small coaching group for some of the top martial arts schools in the world. And since then, it's evolved and evolved and evolved. Grandmaster Smith jumped into the fray and is chief instructor, head coach, and what would you call a chief whip him in shape guy. And so really what we do is we work with some of the top schools in the world, teaching them business, sales, marketing, student support systems. It's not focused at all on curriculum. So it's, BJJ or MMA, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Tang Soo Do, traditional karate, judo, anything in between. But teaching them all the sports systems and really helping them get to very high grossing, very high net locations.
And one of the interesting things is we have so many different styles. We have every style represented in our group, and we don't have one style who has not made it to $1 million gross annually. And these are schools. It doesn't matter Kung Fu, Muay Thai, MMA, BJJ, Krav, Kempo, Taekwondo, Shotokan. You name it, we have it, and it's sometimes they like to say when one style is all doing the high grosses, and they say, oh, you got to do that style. But we found that's not it at all. It's just overlaying the business plan, overlaying the business system that can make any school successful. And that's the real key that we found is why we have so many $1 million schools plus. We have schools now that are doing 125, 130,000 a month, and that was never heard of 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean the commonality, like you said, curriculum agnostic, right? Like it could be a kung fu curriculum, it can be a Tong Sudo curriculum, it can be Muay Thai, but you guys and we're pretty deep in this stuff, right? There are a lot of commonalities on how you manage the curriculum, right? So like it can be you can overlay this stuff on top of any curriculum. It doesn't matter as long as it's appropriate for the student, right? Good for retention and things like that. But it's about how you manage it and how you teach it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And what a lot of people don't realize that it's not just about getting new students. It's about figuring out how to keep those students. And that's just as important. You can bump up your marketing and have a lot of people coming in and still not grow. So you really have to make sure every month you have a high positive net enrollment. If you're netting, and that means, let's say you got 25 new students that month, but you lost 15, then you only netted 10 new students. Well, at that pace, if you did that for a year, if you had 200 students in January and December, you're going to have 320. And that's what we figured out for everybody is how to get them and how to keep them. Because those are the two biggest mysteries for most of the martial arts schools.
Yeah, I think it's right. And again, none of that style dependent. What would you say about like demographic, right? I know another excuse that's pretty common is, well, in Silicon Valley, I can charge $250 a month and I can have 1,000 students, but I'm in Paducah, Kentucky.
Yeah, let me tell you about that one, Toby. You mentioned Silicon Valley. Let's start with pricing. We get the excuse in every demographic in North America, in fact, internationally. We've worked, as in Dubai and Israel and Germany and all over Australia, New Zealand. But here's same conversation I'll have in a week. Is you don't understand my school in Malibu, my school in Orange County, California. My students are too smart to pay that much for lessons. Yeah. You don't understand my students in Mankato, Minnesota. You don't understand my students in Dodge City, Kansas. We're a rural community. They won't pay this. My favorite one is my good friend. He finds it humorous that I keep telling this story years later. But I was running a meeting with Tony Thompson and Ernie Reyes of the West Coast Group. And as you probably know, they're in Silicon Valley. At one end is Stanford University. At the other end, they're right across from Apple and HP and Google and all the headquarters. And I was at the meeting. I looked up at their stats board, and I turned over to I think it was Tony, and I said, "Why is it in Silicon Valley you're charging half of what I'm charging in Denver, Colorado? That doesn't make any sense to me." And he said to me, "Well, the cost of living is so high here, that's all they can afford." And I said to him, "Well, my handicap is I have a degree in economics. It's supply and demand function. The reason why housing prices are high is mostly because they're getting paid a lot of money here. The income ranges in Silicon Valley are higher than anywhere else in the country." But it really doesn't seem to matter, Toby, is that's always the excuse, right? I'm in Manhattan, in the financial district, and my people can't pay that because I'm in Malibu or in Silicon Valley, or I'm out in the sticks in the middle of Oklahoma or Kansas or Minnesota, and they can't pay that. That's the excuse. The other demographic side is, of course, is how many people you can put in the school, and I think what I hear a lot is, "Oh, you don't understand my area. There's a martial arts school on every street corner," or "I'm in X size town. There's 3 other martial arts schools." Well, that assumes that it's a zero-sum game and that they're fighting for market share. And the reality is the vast majority of people who would love to do martial arts, who would benefit from martial arts, doesn't matter whether it's a traditional karate program for kids or an MMA program for 32-year-old adult men. is we have so undertapped the market anywhere in certainly in the world, but certainly anywhere in North America, that there's so much opportunity that that people are just have blinders on what they can do.
Yeah, the Starbucks effect, right? Like, I mean,
Yep.
yeah, from Atlanta to San Francisco to Manhattan, you guys have the same number. You see the same numbers I do, right? I mean, we run billing and software and websites for hundreds of schools all over the country. There isn't any demographic that we've seen so far where more schools doesn't help penetrate the market more deeply, and they all do better. We actually see the opposite. I'm getting a little echo there somewhere. I think somebody's mic went bad on us. But
Master Smith had some fuzz or static on the mic.
Yeah. I was hearing a feedback or something. But where more martial arts schools, usually they all do better. Typically, right? It's like the Starbucks effect. The more Starbucks signs that go up, the more people decide that they need a Starbucks on the way to work.
Well, I concluded in Denver in 1983 is the more the other schools, the more I helped the other schools professionalize, the better off it was for me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is my only concern was the level of professionalism among a lot of the schools is pretty low, and so my fear was somebody would have interacted with one of them, and then that would blemish would tar me. And they all thought I was competing against them. In fact, I knew when I was on TV, I was helping everybody. When I was on major daily newspapers, I was helping everybody. When we were in elementary schools, we were helping everybody. And anybody who reached out for help, I gave it to them because I knew it was a benefit for me. There was no reason in the world I was worried about, the guy down the street. And it didn't matter if he was teaching exactly the same style I was teaching or completely different. There was plenty for everybody.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think the biggest detriment to any marketplace is one of us out there being an idiot, or going to elementary schools and teaching inappropriate things or things that might turn off the administration, or out in the community doing demonstrations that turn people off of martial arts in general, right? That's the impact.
Yeah.
It's not, they're not fighting against us. So you had your group in Virginia Beach. So walk me through what that's all about, like what the mission there is, and how that worked.
Yeah, well, we do live meetings for our members. I don't even know what live is anymore. This is live. We work with different tiers of schools, whether they're new, people coming in new or trying to give a jump start, or the more senior people every week, right? So we have multiple live Zoom meetings a week that is private, interactive, that type thing. But I guess when I mean live is everybody had to get on a plane or drive in a car and stay at a hotel and meet us in a place. In this case, it was in Virginia Beach. And, going back for years now, what we try to do with these events is some of them are like a boot camp where it's here in Evergreen or Golden, Colorado, which we're exhausted. We're gearing up for a black belt test tomorrow, or today actually, and then another member a meeting coming up next weekend. But we've done behind the scenes at West Point. We've done behind the scenes at Annapolis. We've done behind the scenes at Disney World, Disneyland, behind the scenes at the Navy Diving and Demolition School in Panama City.
That's cool.
But bunch of others like that. But always trying to find a place where a high level leadership. You were, most recently a guest speaker for us at the one in Orlando. We got out of Disney World just prior to the pandemic hitting. Barely escaped Florida, but this last one was in Virginia Beach, or I guess the U.S. Naval Station. Norfolk.
Yeah.
There you go, Norfolk. And it just so happens that one of Master Smith's students from many years ago, when he was a 7-year-old and beyond, was a black belt, second degree black belt. We now promoted him to 5th degree black belt. Captain, recently retired Hung Kao, U.S. Navy, and his last 2 posts were he's in charge of the naval budget at the Pentagon, and then he was in charge of all counter insurgent activities in Afghanistan just before the pullout. So very high profile guy who is now running for Senate in Virginia. So against Tim Kaine here coming up this fall. But he lined up for us a behind-the-scenes tour of the USS Gerald Ford, which is the newest, biggest, most elaborate aircraft carrier in the U.S. fleet. It's so big it can carry 76, I think, fully operational jets. It has 2 nuclear plants. It has the electronic rail guns and rail launch you mentioned before we went live here, but it can launch 4 planes at a time. So we did a behind-the-scenes tour with the staff of that about the operations and how that works. Frankly, for all of us with the martial arts school, no matter how impressive that was, and it's just incredible. It's a floating city. I think 4,000 servicemen serve on it. Before that, we spent half a day at the U.S. Navy Air Wing, so the helicopter guys that service the carrier, and they talked us through how the pilots go about their certifications, how the mechanics go through their certifications. The pilots have to do a cycle of simulator, classroom training, live training, on a helicopter, and then rotate through. How they assimilate onto the carrier, what their role is in the carrier. I didn't realize it, but the poor helicopter guys are the first off and last on. So, anytime they're launching jets, the guy's up in the air for however long until he's bingo on fuel.
He's a
sitting
recovery.
there.
Yeah, he's there in case anybody has to ditch into the ocean. He goes and gets them. So he's got to be airborne before they get out there. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you know what was interesting is, you would think, what does this have to do with martial arts, right? What our members got out of it is to realize that even somebody who does their job as often as they do it, because they have to fly every day, they still do daily training. So this is what we're trying to tell the martial arts schools that you have to do with your staff. You don't just train them one time and then throw them out there and expect them to do it. It's going to be this daily, weekly training to keep them on cycle to make sure your school's growing.
Yeah. I'm getting some weird stuff on your mic there, Master Smith. It just started, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe if you can look at the settings, there might be something you can do there. I don't know. I think I have all mine over here turned off already, so I'm not sure what happened. It was fine a minute ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a fair lesson, right? I mean, we all think that, we've already trained the staff. They're trained. Let them go do what it is they're supposed to be doing. But you're wrong, right? Whatever you think they're doing, go watch for an hour and tell me that that's accurate, right? You're probably wrong, right? It's like what the laws of thermodynamics, right? All systems left unintended trend toward entropy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So the staff training was impressive. What else do you think was impressive for the guys, or useful for the guys from to bring back for operations?
Oh, there was so much, and you're right. I love that quote. All systems left to themselves tend towards entropy. is exactly right. That's what Matt Smith, all the way back to what you were doing with Junri and Nick Okinas back in the day. We had an enforce that was run by Jeff Smith, a 13-week training cycle. So we got trained on everything. And then on week 14, we were back to ring. Junri Institute, may I help you, and how to handle the phones, and then just cycling through how to teach do a confirmation call, first intro, second intro, enrollment conference, renewal prep, renewal conference, attendance, and so forth. And the idea was we were fully training, and I was one of them, being fully trained on everything every 13 weeks, and then just so every 3 months, and then just cycling back through and cycling back through and cycling back through. And again, that was, the helicopter pilots there, the guy who's been flying 5 years, he's back to the simulator, and then back to classroom, and then back to being checked out again, and follow the checklist, and then start over. And if you don't just keep drilling and practicing and rehearsing, all that happens is they, again, tend towards entropy. The systems tend to fall apart. At the meetings we had there, and it was 4 days. So we had everybody got a chance for a day to do the behind the scenes things, and then come back, and then we worked with Hung Kao for a couple hours, who's again very highly accomplished, hopefully soon to be senator, but retired as he was the in charge of the Navy Diving Demolition School, among many other high-profile positions. But we had him as a speaker talking about leadership and team development and so forth. Then we had another one of his guys, demolition instructor, actually, Bob Pizzini, who did about a half day on leadership, the highest level leadership, team leadership, and so forth. And then Toby, our Millionaire Smarts coach, now also doing a column for your magazine, Lee Miltier. We put Lee Miltier to work with our $1 Million Schools, and she did a very high level conversation, intimate with a small group of people. So it was very productive, with a special focus on staff development, developing leadership, how to tie that into to all levels. I think they came away with at least 3 pages of strong implementation ideas for their students. Matt Smith, what would you add to that?
Yeah, and you stack on top of that real martial arts training. We were, obviously one of our members, Virginia Beach, has his school there. I did taught a couple of classes to teach everybody how to, make sure that everybody understands what black belt verbiage is and how you have to motivate your students to want to be a black belt, and how to set their goals, and how to motivate them and inspire them. And so I was teaching the classes, and they were all around taking notes while I was working with the students. So they saw how you correct the students, how you spotlight them, how you put them on a pedestal, how you ask the questions to find out if they know the answers. And if they don't, then you're explaining it more. So it was a real hands-on type of training. So even though that was more of a Taekwondo style school, the same thing applied for all schools in teaching principles of your goal of how to get your students motivated to want to be a black belt, because that's how you keep them longer.
Yeah, and Toby, you know him well. We were at Jeff Ciello's school. He's a Annapolis grad, running a wonderful school there in Virginia Beach. We've worked with him off and on for forever. And Tracy Thomas was there, another old ATA associate of yours. With his guys. So we were working with Tracy and working with his staff and so forth as well as Chief Master Greg Moody, also of the ATA. He'll be here again this weekend for these meetings. He works intimately with us with the group as well. But yeah, I mean, it was what happens at a lot of those events, as you probably well know, is when you took people to the Disney Institute. I think a lot of people are like, well, why do I care what they're going to say? And then you go, oh my goodness, there's so much takeaway. I can't even absorb, what it is. Everything from, the training on the Disney way and the traditions school and all of that stuff, which applies directly to martial arts. And the same thing is true whether it's West Point or Annapolis or there at the Naval Station with Captain Cow and Bob Pizzini. Is there's so many takeaways on what it takes to rise to the occasion, on leadership, what it takes to teach leadership, all the way down to the 6-year-old white belt and their parents. There's so many takeaways, but oftentimes, I mean, as you said, as I'm a martial arts school, I'm like, well, I teach Taekwondo. Why aren't we learning Taekwondo and how to teach that better? It's like, well, really, you have to go from technician to master teacher of the thing to master school operator, and know all of the pieces for developing the staff, the second tier, the third tier, the bench strength, the quality of the people underneath you, or else you never really get to excellence. You never rise above mediocrity.
Yeah, and all these examples, whether it's West Point, Air Force, Naval Academy, Disney, I don't know, Universal Studio, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
sure.
all of these examples of excellence in action follow the same pattern, right? They have the same problems, maybe just at a larger scale. Disney has to train 17,000 employees a year or something like this, right? I mean, it's a little different. But if you look at the systems that they're using to do it, and you learn the lessons, why does this system exist? I mean, that's a thing, man. And so many many schools struggle with mediocrity because the guy running it is the chief cook and bottle washer their entire career, and then 50 years later they look back and realize they haven't created any assets, and they don't have any systems to sustain the thing when they retire. So what's next? I mean, that's a tragedy, right?
Well, that's a great example. One of the guests, it wasn't in Virginia Beach, but when we were at West Point, we had Bernie Carrick, and also he came down to Florida, came down to Breckenridge. He's now what are we promoting to Matt Smith? 6th degree black belt. He's a black belt all the way to Peter Urban, back in New York City in the 60s. But he was talking about how he turned around the jail system in New York, which was the most biggest disaster jail system in the United States. And it became a Harvard case study on excellence in government, and how he went about that responsibility, and then how he managed the new NYPD. And it was all about the CompStat system, and what we call just monitoring your stats every week. They were, for the first time ever, monitoring their stats down at a block and a neighborhood level through the different precincts in the police department to manage the operation. And you look at it, and it's so easy to make this a personality driven business. And you're a good instructor, you're a bad instructor, people gravitate to you or they don't gravitate to you. But until you have those systems in place and are able to replicate yourself down to multiple tiers, you don't have anything sustainable. Like you just said, Toby, you have something that is, if you're sick, if you want to go on vacation, if you want to semi-retire, you can't do it. I mean, our guys are all the top echelon, are all at the point where Tim Harrison goes on a motorcycle trip, rides Route 66 for a month. He can do that, right? Yeah. Jan Lappin wants to take the summer off and tour Europe with her kids. She can do that. The schools still do $100,000 a month consistently, and still nets $50,000 or $60,000 a month consistently without them having to be there. So that's our model: is replicate those systems so that marketing still happens, new enrollment still happens, renewal still happens, retention still happens, excited, happy, productive students still happen over and over and over again. And it's again a proven system. Master Smith, June Rhee didn't teach a whole lot of white belt classes at the June Rhee Institute across 13 locations, and neither did you across the Jeff Smith organization or across Mile High Karate. For me, for years, I ran 3 classes a week, 2 staff classes and a black belt class, and that was it in order to replicate the systems. And by the way, if I'd been gone for a month, I had people who could teach both and do it probably as well, if not better than I did.
As I started working with Harry and Friends, boy, my complete 180, much better than I could deliver just by myself. Much better content.
Well, Harry is a godsend. Harry is like a virtual staff member.
The kids are just more excited. When it's time to do the mat chat, a lot of times it used to be verbal, but now we have the visual.
Right. And
they can relate to this guy.
We have been a long-time Harry and Friends customer with our little ninjas going on, we think, around 10 years now.
How many schools do you guys have that are using Harry and Friends? 5 schools. Excellent. And how do the kids react? How do the parents react?
They love it.
Harry is a big part of our We Warriors program. Kids love him. They will do things that he says that won't do if we tell them to. They definitely won't do it if their parents tell them to. Makes the parents a little jealous, but they love him too. Check it out, guys. You got to do Harry and Friends.
Okay, everybody. Where is Harry today? It's great. At Martial Arts.
Check out the latest issue of Martial Arts World News Magazine, the industry trade journal for martial arts school owners and instructors at mawnews.com. And now, back to our show.
Yeah, it's too often, like too many friends of mine, right? Too many colleagues, too many people I've known for too long. They sort of get to the end of the trail, or some hiccup like COVID or something like this, a little dramatic, but they just don't have any systems to fall back on. If they have to, be distracted for a month, it's a problem. So something we haven't talked about yet, which I think is super valuable. I'm getting some echo here somewhere, guys. Gosh, I don't know what's going on. The way I tell the story is oftentimes we put mirrors in our school for a reason, right? And a lot of reasons. One of them is so that we can see the class behind us, and so that we can monitor things and all this sort of stuff. But I think that one of the real big benefits of having mirrors in a school is for self-analysis, right? You have the ability to kind of check your technique and see what it looks like, and measure it against the other people in the room. And the other people in the room are really valuable because the lower belt standing to your left, you want to be impressive for them and be a leadership role for them. And the guys to your right are higher ranks. You want to make sure you're trying to keep up. So there's like this mastermind effect, right? There's like this sort of mutual pushing of each other forward effect. And the room that you're talking about with the people you're talking about and the type of facilitation you're talking about, I think generates that mastermind effect a lot, right?
You bet.
So how would you describe that to school owners who don't understand what that might be and how that works and how this works in your events?
I guess I could start. If I go back to when I was doing coaching, I don't know, 15 years ago or whatever, I used to schedule people one-on-one, talk to them on the phone. And what I started to realize behind the scenes, what was happening is I would say, oh, you can charge this much. You could be grossing X amount. You could have this kind of ratio. It's possible to have this many students, possible to get your retention level to this point. What I was recognizing was, and 95% would never say it, but what they were hearing was, oh, well, maybe you can do that. You're a cross between Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins. Maybe he can do that. He's the world champion and this and that, but I couldn't do it because, right? That was really what was manifesting in their mind. Or, on a more skeptical basis, they were saying, yeah, that's bullshit. That just sounds good. I don't believe you. But when you put them in a room with 20 people, most of whom are way further ahead of where they're at than, as far as revenue, students, school development, and so forth. And then they say, oh, you could never do that in my area. We have 5 or 10 or 15 other people who have already done it, who have similar circumstances, who can call them out on it. And what they hear is, for each thing, whether it's a marketing activity like online, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, Instagram, whatever, or whether it's a community outreach activity, a gym teach for the day, an after-school program, a fair, a carnival, a Halloween deal, whatever it might be, a movie theater promotion. With any one of those things, they're over and over and over getting an example of, oh, look what he did. Oh, look what she did. Oh, look what happened here. Oh, look, Middleburg, Florida. Oh, look, Mankato, Minnesota. Oh, they're getting an example from every style, every type of demographic, that proves that it works, but doesn't just prove that it works once, proves over and over and over again. Yeah. Toby, you probably saw it. I'm putting together a new little book that should be done next week, simple steps to add 100 students to your school. But the thing I tried to do with it is I took screenshots of our private discussion forum of all the different things I'm talking about. But in those screenshots, every time we were out here and he got 52 leads and 49 appointments. We got 22 enrollments from it. We got it's all the description of what happened in their words. And to me, that's probably the most important piece of it.
Yeah.
I think what we tend to do is we tend to think that person's going to help solve my problems. I'm going to help solve their problem. We're going to create that synergy. I think a lot of it is just create a no excuses environment. I don't really think this will work. Oh, well, it worked here, it worked here, it worked here, it worked here. Here's the thing that didn't work. Oh, I tried this and it didn't work. Well, did you do this? Yes. Did you do this? Yes. Did you do this? No. Okay, well, here's the problem is it gives that kind of environment. Now, Smith, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think the real benefit of our group is that we've come to realize that the way we're training our members is no different than we train the students in our school to become a black belt. In the schools, we're trained to become a black belt in the martial arts technically and mentally, but for our group, they're becoming a black belt in business. And that's what we find is the biggest weakness in most of the martial arts schools. And when I say most, 90% are spending all their time training their physical martial arts and not their martial arts business. And one of the reasons for that is that there's very few places you can go that will show you how to run your business successfully and have schools, so many schools in the organization that are already doing over $1 million to prove that the system works. When they get in our group, and we started running it just like our schools, in that we have a beginner group, we have an intermediate group, we have an advanced group. Because when you put them all in a one-room schoolhouse, you either have to slow it down for the new ones or you speed it up for the more advanced ones, and somebody's going to get left out.
Yeah.
So we finally got to the point where we figured we have to train them what they need to be focusing on, no different than the white belts don't need to be learning that more advanced stuff yet. They got to get their basics down. So when we take them through that system, and the real benefit Master Oliver was touching upon was that when they're in a group atmosphere, they will learn from the people that are better than them what to do. They will also learn from the ones that aren't good as them what not to do. So that way they're constantly learning. And it's interesting to see some new members jump aboard. You know, we have a school in a Muay Thai school in California, Ben Brown, and Ben started with us, and he was doing about 15,000, and the very first month he did 35,000.
Yeah.
Well, he had never done 35,000 in his life, and he'd been in business for over 20 years. Well, fast forward 5 months, he's up to 60,000. And he had probably one of the most heartfelt stories that I've heard before, almost brought a tear to everybody's eye. He started in November, and in December he had his record year, a record month, and he made enough money that he was able to take his family on a Christmas vacation. And actually, he said, give them a real Christmas that he hadn't ever been able to provide for them, because December historically for him had always been the worst month of the year, and he could never afford. He was trying to make up, the losses from December and January, so he really couldn't take off, that time that he needed for Christmas with the family. But that's just one of many. We had a Korean lady that just joined with us, and real big in the Taekwondo community. She was on the Olympic team, and she wanted to start a school. She started with us a couple months before she was opening. She finally opened in December, and last month she did 35,000 and has 102 students, and that was in 4 months.
Yeah.
That was April. So those are the kind of things that people learn from each other, because when they see Ben Brown, who'd only been with us 5 months, quadruple his gross, then these other schools quit making their excuses.
Yeah.
Master Oliver asked him, Ben, what did you do that you were able to, because he went from 100 students to 250 students. In 6 months, he had 150 more students, or 120, and said, what did you do? And he said, well, I'm telling you, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just listening to everything you say, and I'm trying to do it. I'm still learning, and I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to apply everything you guys are teaching me. And I'm sure I'll get it down better later, but it seems to be working. And everybody kind of laughed about it. But those are our typical school owners. They learn from each other. It's the synergy that develops with those schools. And you've heard the expression, the rising tide lifts all boats. Well, when you're in a group where you have so many schools doing over $1 million, if you just ride their coattails and just do what they're doing, and they have these weekly meetings, so you hear exactly what their home runs are and what's working this month. They're not talking about what worked last year. We're talking right now last month, this week, this is how I just did a live event, they'll say, and I got 80 appointments and 100 leads. And so now they're getting immediate feedback with what they need to be doing. And then schools, besides the ones that are doing well, it's the ones that are having trouble. And they will vent their trouble or their frustration. And before Master Oliver and I can even jump in, some of our advanced guys will say, I had that same problem and here's what I did. Yeah. And so this is how the rising tide is going to lift all those boats, because they learn from each other.
Yeah, that's exactly. I've told the story a million times, and I think I've solved it, Mr. Oliver. I think your mic in some way is picking up the audio. So that when I mute you, the echo goes away. So I think somehow you might have a speaker pointing at it or something like that. I don't know. But we can fix that. You can hit the unmute button. But that was exactly what I was going to say, Master Smith. Is just that's exactly. We're talking about mirrors in a school, right? Sort of like so you can do some self-analysis. That's exactly what happened to me. Was I had all the excuses in the world, right? And I had maybe a couple of bad influences in my ear that maybe instantiated and perpetuated a few of those excuses. But I blamed the demographic. I blamed the traffic pattern. I blamed the shopping center. I blamed the trailer park that was down the street from the school. I blamed the elementary schools were screwed up because other karate schools were in there messing with them and messed it up. And I made all the excuses. And then at a session like you're describing, everybody started putting their numbers on the board, and I started seeing this pattern of people with the same demographic, mix that I had, and the same population density that I had, and the same roughly curriculum even, that I had, but we're doing 4 or 5 times the numbers. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute here. Something else is going on, right? But until you confront that something else is going on, and it turns out it's you, right? Right. Until you confront that, nothing changes, right? Nothing happens. So I think that's, probably one of the most valuable things I see in meetings like you're describing in these types of mastermind sessions is it forces everybody to kind of confront their own bullshit. Maybe?
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
All right.
Did that help any?
It might have. Not yet.
I tried to redirect the speakers a little bit, perhaps. If not, I can always go on headphones, and that'll help. But
your volume's coming in good.
Yeah, the problem is we're getting static on your mic.
Yeah, it's kind of when you're both there, I think is what the problem is. Yeah. So now if I mute Master Smith, you're fine. Well, that's weird.
There we go.
So it sounds like you have another event coming up as well?
Oh, yeah. Well, we have a black belt test this weekend, and then next weekend we have a member event here in Evergreen. We're actually, Toby, you've been here. We're gonna have Thursday and Sunday, the new members, and then the $1 million guys here at my house, and then we're going to be right across next Del Rancho on Friday, Saturday. Usually we do Golden, but I guess Golden in May has too many weddings and quinceañeras, or however you say that word, and so forth. So we're going to be up here in Evergreen. Hey, while you guys were talking, I was looking at some of the comments. Here's a shout out to Jim Nan. He said 20 years ago, I told him just raise the price. If it doesn't work, I'll fly out there and do it myself. He said he's been a fan ever since I am no nonsense, punched him in the frickin' face and kick your butt, and it actually worked. I love that. As you know, Toby, I perhaps pride myself on being an acquired taste, which I think pretty much Matt Smith, anybody from you and June Ree and Joe Lewis to Dan Kennedy, Jay Abraham, etc., all have that people either love them or hate them syndrome going on. I know Master Ree, as beloved as he was by most, was despised and hated by some. Or if you go back to Muhammad Ali and Bruce Lee, I mean, that was, people forget that people were buying tickets to Muhammad Ali's fights to see him lose, and the martial arts community generally hated Bruce Lee until he became an icon. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, William Wong had made a comment too. It looks like it's been buried in the comments. already, but William said that that you guys have both been amazing mentors for him. I'm so thankful to be part of the group. So thanks to William. William's a fantastic guy, by the way.
Oh yeah. He's doing really, really, really well, and we're kicking his butt every day to get him to double that.
Well, I guess before I got distracted with William's comment, but I think you just reinforced what I said, and I think it's the truth. Until you confront your own bullshit, nothing changes, right? And sometimes you need somebody to shake you out of apathy, and and worse, shake you out of being comfortable. Right. Yeah. Sometimes if the school is doing, $20,000 or $25,000 a month, then maybe that's okay for you, and you feel like you're comfortable or whatever the case is. But the biggest enemy of great is good, right? So, you need somebody to help with that.
Well, and you brought it up a minute ago. I mean, I hate to go back in time to the debacle that we all suffered through.
And Oliver Drexler from Germany.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Oliver. Fantastic. Yeah, I think I did a shout out to Germany there and Holland and a number of other places we've worked.
If you can stick a pin in what you're thinking, don't forget. But Oliver is a great example of what you described about 30 minutes ago. Oliver, little school, little burg in Germany, said, "Who cares if everybody else thinks you can't run a very successful school here? We're going to do it anyway," and did it anyway, right? So I mean, anybody with the demographic excuse, go talk to Oliver. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we had a school also in the Netherlands, and as you know, everybody over there was charging like $40 a month US, and half of it was government funded at that, and everybody assumed that you couldn't do it, and there was some issue about you can only charge X amount or the government won't pay for it. And I said, just forget that. Don't take the government money. Yeah. Don't worry about all of that stuff. Let's just do it the right way. And they were doing $1 million US within 12 months. It was just an amazing transformation. But
Canada is another good example of that.
Yeah. Well, Canada is basically a 51st state. There's no difference between British Columbia and Seattle. I mean, and it's basically I think British Columbia is almost parallel with Colorado, actually, when you look at the demographics and the numbers and everything else, other than they have more water than we do.
The only problem with the Canadian guys usually is that they want to charge what we are charging in Canadian dollars to match the same number, not in U.S. dollars, but if we charge 300 on a U.S. dollars, they're going to charge 300 Canadian, and Master Oliver's constantly reminding them that you're not charging 300 when you charge 300 Canadian. You're only charging 220 or something, So to get them on ours, it is a challenge sometimes.
Pretty funny.
I'm not sure that helped, Toby. I'm muted on my end. That didn't seem to get rid of the static, so I don't know.
Yeah, when I muted you, I got it.
Oh, okay. Well,
not the static, but the echo.
Oh, okay. I was trying to get rid of the static, but doesn't matter. On on going back to your example of I'm doing 25,000 and I'm happy with that. The problem oftentimes is something sideswipes you. The most obvious and extreme example is when every level of our local, state, and federal government tried to kill our industry a couple years ago. But all kinds of things happen, right? Is on one extreme, we've seen people who had an old back injury from their martial arts training and went into the hospital and then couldn't be back in the school for 3 months. And on the other end, you want to take a vacation for the first time. If you don't have the systems in place and have your business be a business rather than just be a personality and operation that thrives when you're there and when you're healthy and doesn't thrive when you're not there, any one of those things can kill you, and they can kill you overnight, and they can put you upside down very, 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 very quickly. So it's to me, it's Toby, that first book I wrote years ago of Everything I Knew When I Was 22, of all of those original ones, the only one we still keep reprinting because it got such good feedback. We've updated a few times, but there's a chapter in there that's don't confuse your hobby with your business. And I think so many martial artists, we get into this because we loved it. It was our hobby. It was the thing we would do for free anyway. And that's great. But then we've got to say, okay, but how do I run this as a professional school, a professional educational institution, rather than just being someplace where I'm developing people to work out with me? And until you make that transition and put together the marketing systems, the sales systems, the student development systems, put together a curriculum that's independent of you being there and supporting it, you really don't have a business. You just have a way of creating income when you're capable of it and when you're allowed to.
Yeah, there's something that you tread on there that might be worth underscoring a little bit. But no one said this, no one intimated this, no one even treaded near this issue at all. But I know one excuse that oftentimes folks have is, well, if the cost of success is diminishing my quality standards, if the cost of getting from 30,000 to 60,000 or from 10,000 to 30,000, if the cost of that is to sacrifice the integrity of my style or my art or, my federation or my association or whatever it is, if that's the cost, I don't want it, right? My observation has been that the opposite is true, but tell me how you guys think about the world and as you're coaching schools, how are you helping them see the world with that mind frame? Oh no!
And can you hear me? Is my volume coming through okay?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're good
okay. Now. Yeah, and that's the good thing about our program is that we don't tell per se. We don't tell them how to run their schools, but we do give them advice on making sure that they are focusing on the quality of their instruction by giving them the personal attention that they need. See, it's not just what you teach, it's how you teach it. And those are the things that we emphasize to the school that they're able to comprehend, is that if you're just teaching the techniques and you're expecting them to learn it, rather than making sure that you put together a testing procedure, a progress check, to make sure that they're learning the material. And that way, if you have your belt system structured properly and your testing structured properly, how you conduct that graduation, how you conduct that testing has a lot to do with the success and the quality of your students. So we do give them suggestions on that and how to make better black belts. And the hardest part with some of these martial arts schools is that when they're teaching, they have the idea that, oh, I don't have a problem with the dropouts because my classes are all full. Well, then we look at how many enrollments they've been getting, and then their active count, because they weren't ever tracking their retention before.
Yeah.
The way that I judge the quality of an instructor is based on his retention. How many black belts is he developing? How many students is the school growing? And as we tell our schools, you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. If your active count is going up, then your gross is going to be going up. If your active count is going down, then your gross is going to start going down. It might not go down immediately, because most people, when they drop out, it's usually they'll keep paying for a month or two, and then they realize they're not coming back. So getting the schools to take control of making sure that their students are coming to class, and when they come to class that they're spotlighting them, they're catching them doing something good and giving them some positive feedback. And if you're checking their progress, you have structured progress checks and structured testing and graduation ceremonies where you get to celebrate their success. Those are the kind of things that develop a stronger classroom. And with the simple process of teaching them how to teach their students to really set a goal and say that they want to be a black belt, and make them put it in writing, so they also learn how to fill out a vision sheet, and that vision sheet will have what they're going to be like when they're a black belt. and it'll have when they're going to be a black belt. And these are the kind of things that you have to do to improve the quality of your classroom and the retention, which is, besides getting more students, the next most important thing is to not lose them once you get them. So you have to have a system of how you track them on a daily and weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah.
Toby,
Yeah.
I might be a little stronger on that if you don't mind.
Yeah.
If I go back to the Junior Institute in the 70s, we had Jeff Smith as the world light heavyweight kickboxing champion. We had Mike Coles, we had Rodney Batiste, we had Dan Magnus, who was top 5 ranked international PKA kickboxing. I can go through the list. We had John Chung, we had Charlie Lee, two of add George Chung in there, and you had the 3 world champions rotating with each other in forms. And the local martial arts schools called us a belt factory.
Yeah.
Oh, you're just a belt factory. Well, the belt factory then is the term McDojo now. Is in my mind what the reality is McDojo or belt factory or any iteration of that is the broke guy's excuse to keep them broke, rather than looking at the successful schools and saying, what is it they're doing that I could do? We not only don't water down the curriculum, we make it stronger. All the way back, you and I were there. We still use the video in Chicago with Grandmaster YK Kim and Master Kurt Pelt and so forth. I pissed off a lot of the masters there because I said, you guys think you're so rough and tough and have great curriculum, but reality, most of your students suck. And they looked at me like they wanted to kill me. And I said, if I look at your numbers, on average, your students drop out within 6 months. Within 6 months, they have not gotten very good at martial arts. And 6 months after they dropped out, they've forgotten pretty much everything they learned, other than it was a fond memory or a bad taste in their mouth. And so if you're enrolling 100 people a year, you're losing 100 people a year, most of which never got past 6 months. So what happens is I think schools miss the point that what you do in the first year is radically different than what you do in the second year, is radically different than what you do in the third, radically different what you do in the fourth. And what we have done over the years, and Master Smith can validate, the Junior Institute standard for black belt was extremely high, probably as high as anywhere in the world. And I kept making it harder and more difficult and adding more requirements and more reading requirements and sleep deprivation and everything else. And what you can do is continue to elevate the standard of what a black belt is, while at the same time improving retention in the first year. And you can eliminate that excuse for doing poorly by not buying into that McDojo crap or belt factory or anything. In Denver, Colorado, I had, in the 80s, 90s, probably a 75% market share of students in the metro area, something like that, at least 50%. They all called me. They all thought I was a belt factory, a McDojo, whenever the terms came in. But then when if I took a group of students to a tournament, they won all the first, second, and third place trophies. And then they would, when I was doing the tournament, they were mad at me because we would go dominate a tournament. It's like, well, what do you want me to do to not dominate a tournament? Right. You want me to bring you want me to support the tournament, but you want me to bring fewer people. Okay, I can do that. So we just start taking our black belt prep class and our conditional black belts. And then they would win first, second, third place trophy. And then they're still mad at me because they're dominating the tournament. I'm like, well, which is it? I'm a McDojo, or I'm so much better than you guys that, you can't stand it. And the reality is their excuse for failing to achieve was to point the finger. Yeah. Internal locus of control, I can take complete responsibility for what happens. External locus of control, there must be some external reason that person is doing better than I am. Oh, they prostitute the art, they water it down, they just are commercial, they're talking people into things they don't want to do. Those are the excuses, but the excuses are horseshit. It's not the reality. Now, we all three know people whose martial arts backgrounds aren't great, who develop mediocre quality students. Every now and then, one of those people catch fire for a short period of time. They get a new marketing strategy, they hire the right, ad agency or Facebook marketer person, or they just hit on something. Every now and then you see a flash in the pan by somebody who's truly pathetic, but you don't see them there 10 years, 15, 20, 25 years later, because that's about student retention, student service, creating excellence in students. Most of that excellence in students is about their emotional and intellectual development as well as their physical development. But I think this industry has a real problem with broke people pointing the finger at people who are successful and looking for a reason to externalize their own blame for failure is really what most of that is. Just to put it a little stronger, the reality is we focus more than anybody I've ever seen on student retention, quality interactions with the parents, on high graduation rates to black belt, but elevating the quality of the standards doesn't matter whether it's MMA, BJJ, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Shotokan, or whatever, creating some of the highest quality black belts that really create a lifetime value for martial arts.
Hey son, let's do something different this weekend. How about we take in a museum?
Yeah, that sounds good.
We could learn about the samurai. Yeah! Or how about the Hawaiian Lua warriors? Ooh, the mighty sumo! Hey, how about the Martial Arts History Museum? That way we can learn about them all.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Do you feel like you're getting crushed under the tremendous weight of managing your martial arts school? Crawl out from beneath the burden and reach your potential. Lighten the load and let Atlas Martial Arts Software do the heavy lifting. Visit tryatlassoftware.com to see for yourself and get 7 free gifts valued at over $400.
Stay informed while on the go with daily news in the Martial Arts World News Magazine mobile app for Apple and Android devices. Find us in your app store. And now, back to our show.
I'm glad you kind of went deeper. That's exactly sort of my analysis and my experience is that the folks who really want to get great at this business, you want to get great at all of it, not some of it. I just talked to my daughter. My daughter just graduated from middle school, for God's sakes. I know yours just got her degree, right? I mean, just got the master's, right? Didn't Jada get the master's just recently?
Yeah.
But so we went to the award ceremony. She she was on the president's list or whatever. And after the fact, we had the conversation in the car, and I said, well, listen, Sophie, we just learned a lesson in there. You saw that the people who were on the the 4.0 list, they were also the people who were on the the excellence in athletics list, and they were also the people who were doing the community support activities, and they were also the people who got a few of her friends had like 7 medals around their neck by the end of the award ceremony. And I said, this is a commonality that you're going to find for the rest of your life. People who choose to be excellent at something, they want to be excellent at everything. Right? They focus on their area of where they want to focus, and if they're going to be running a martial arts school, they want to be great at serving the student and elevating standards and producing great quality students, and of course growing the business. Right? So the minute you get serious about growing the business, you have to get serious about student retention and serious about student quality, and the minute you internalize and say my black belt graduation rate is a function of my ability to teach difficult curriculum, then you start taking responsibility for the black belts, right? Otherwise, anybody can wash anybody out. Anybody can do that, right?
Yeah. You mentioned Jada. Yeah, she just graduated with her bachelor's.
Oh, bachelor's.
She's been working for about a year, and decided, which I don't blame her, that she wanted to go on straight into another academic program immediately. She's living in Seattle now, and then. Chase just got his driver's license today. So while we were on the meeting here, he just passed his driver's license test. And there's a little rivalry between the two of them, I might say. Jada didn't pass her test the first time.
Oh, yeah.
So Jada's been hoping that he's going to not pass his test because he's been harassing her now for 6-7 years about failing her test the first time. And and Chase is hoping he passes so he doesn't get it back as good as he took, he gave it for the last 7 years. So it's amazing that they're they grow up way too quickly. Jeff, your Netta just graduated from college.
Yeah, she graduated in December and graduated with honors. She was the one with all those medals and all those awards. So much that the dean reached out to her to offer her a scholarship to pursue her master's. So she wasn't planning on doing her master's right now because she's working. She got a job with the government working with the judicial system. And so she's doing her master's and is going to keep working full time just like she was, because she graduated with honors and a double major. She had a computer science and a business degree, which I thought, what better for martial arts, right? I think every martial artist, those are two well-known things that need. My son just graduated.
Anybody with a CS degree I want to talk to. We need it. I'll take as many as we can find.
She's doing amazing. And then my son Dean just graduated, and of course they're competitive like Jada and Chase, because Dean graduated in the normal time on a single major rather than a double major a semester early, and but he did graduate with honors, so he at least could hold that. And my other daughter, Sheena, just got her master's. That was a year ago. She got her master's degree. So the only one that doesn't have the college degrees, I had 6 years of college without a degree.
Yeah.
Because
I know the feeling.
Junri had me move from Texas the halfway through my senior year before I graduated to come teach for him. And he got me in a school in D.C. That I was joining at the middle of my senior year. And when I transferred all my credits, I was a second semester sophomore.
Yeah.
So I lost all my damn credits and then I had to keep starting over all the time. But yeah, it's something that all my kids are 4th or 5th degrees. They've been doing it for 25 years or 20 years, pretty much all their life. And we find that our program develops such successful leadership type students that they become a product of the product. And it really adds to the real benefit of your program when you have so many people that have graduated through your programs with such success. And success breeds success. So they're learning from their peers, which are the higher level people who are already leaders.
Yeah, certainly Minecraft isn't getting them there right now. So, I mean, that's not going to get the job done. Very cool, guys. It was great to catch up. I guess so. If I'm, if the Martial Arts Wealth Mastery Group is something that intrigues me, where do I find more information? How do I find you guys? What's the best step for somebody to take?
They could just go to martialartswealth.com, and I've got that third new book coming out pretty quickly, and the other 2 books, and they can have them all for free. There's just I think under the resources tab, they can opt in and they can get them all digitally. And if they're a good fit, then they can follow through. And your old friend Bob Dunn can facilitate and talk to them, and schedule a time with Grandmaster Smith and myself to see if it's a good fit. But we'd love to give them, the free books and give them a bunch of free resources. And if it's a good fit, great. If not, they've got what I think will be pretty valuable to begin with, to give them some different ways to think about their school and different ways to think about the developmental process.
Yeah, or they can call Bob Dunn directly. He's our director, and he'll facilitate the books for them. His number is 720-256-0208. 720-256-0208, and just give him a call, and he'll stick those books for you, send you a copy. So, just having those books is such valuable information, and it really opens your eyes to what your school is really capable of doing, because that is the thing that I think holds most schools back, is their lack of education in how to run a successful martial arts school. But I tell them every time, how do you expect to have such a successful school when you haven't spent hardly any time in your business training? If you put a stack of your martial arts training up against a stack of your martial arts business training, it would be so unbalanced, you would barely be a white belt. So the same way you got your black belt in martial arts is the same way you get your black belt in business. You need an instructor, a mentor. You need to be in class on a weekly basis, our Zoom meetings.
Positive
you
peer
need
group,
to
yeah.
then ask questions. You learn from the people that are better than you what to do. You learn from the ones that aren't as good as you what not to do. And that's how you get better.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, definitely the Malhi Maverick book is really good for anybody. Like, it's a really good read. It's easy. It's an easy read. I think a unit is a couple of pages long, and there's some really interesting insights in there. That, you know, if anybody hasn't gotten that thing, you got to get that. That should be on the bookshelf of, you know, next to like Think and Grow Rich or something. I mean, it should be on everybody's bookshelf.
Thank you for that, Toby. I might add just one other frame is, you know, we're not trying to turn martial artists into business people from the standpoint of, you know, sometimes people have the vision, I'm going to grab the briefcase and go sit in the desk and, you know, do all that stuff. What you want to do is learn to master all elements of being a master teacher, and all elements of attracting new students, and all elements of developing people to their highest level, and all elements of, you know, evangelizing, if I can say that word, the martial arts benefits and the benefits of your particular systems throughout your community. That's really what it is. And so oftentimes they say, well, I didn't get in this to be a business guy. I got into it to be a martial artist. Well, that's right. It put all the systems in place to let you be the highest quality martial arts master teacher and the highest quality developer of people underneath you. That's really what we're talking about. And again, I think that piece of resistance sometimes gets in people's way too. They think that's not why I did this, you know, hell, I'd go back and work at a bank, or I'd go back and, you know, but that's not what it's about. You've got to spread the word through the community. You've got to get new students in the door, and you've got to develop them to the highest level potential.
And that new book of yours, Master Oliver, is what everybody needs. I mean, to me, it was one of the most important books, and I'm so glad you did, because it simply add 100 new students to your school. Because what we find is that no matter what problem a school has, no matter how big a problem they have, there's nothing that 100 new students won't fix. So this book, it really outlines everything for you. It's really what I consider the best martial arts book in helping a school fix the problems that they have in getting more students and keeping them. So don't miss this free opportunity. These don't come along very often, especially in the martial arts, on something this simple that costs you nothing. So if you have any interest in growing your school, you know, do call Bob or go to the website and link on, but 720-256-0208, and get yourself a copy. And he'll even send the first two books that he did too, which is so interesting. A lot of people nowadays are just figuring out how to do internet marketing well. And Master Oliver wrote the first book on internet marketing in the year 2000. We're talking 24 years ago. He wrote a book on internet marketing. Well, not just doing internet marketing, but you have to really know what the hell you're doing if you're going to write a book on it. And he did that 24 years ago. So this is the kind of knowledge you're able to pick up on what's going on at your school, and solve all your problems. Add 100 students, pick up the book.
Yeah, that would have been the thing that I would have underscored. Would have been it's pretty easy to go find free information on the internet about how to run a martial arts school. Really tough, though, to find free information about how to run your martial arts school from somebody who's actually done it and done it over and over again and done it in almost every demographic in the country and in the world and done it with all sorts of different types of schools. And you see, this is different. This is not, a guy yesterday that figured out how to run a Facebook ad and now all of a sudden he's an internet marketing expert, right? Oh, I can use the ad manager. I now run an ad agency. That's not the deal, right?
Yeah,
I
have not too charitably referred to the bozo explosion that's going through.
Oh my God,
the industry.
Are you kidding me?
And you have all those different levels, right? You have, as you said, I figured out how to run Facebook ads, but the other end of it is somebody who's run a very successful school, but it never evolved out of being personality based.
Right.
And now they want to teach people what they did, but what they did was about them. It wasn't about the systems and the operations. You mentioned that internet marketing book. And Toby, you and I worked for years on all this internet marketing stuff, and it's the most dramatic example of the only thing that is constant about your business is that the world around it is changing all the time. When I wrote that book on internet marketing, I said don't use online video. Yeah. Alta Vista was the primary search engine. Yahoo was the directory we were trying to game. The only pay-per-click option was GoTo, which became Overture, which became Google's inspiration for their entire multi-billion-dollar business model. And so, there's all of the principles in the book are probably still sound, but all the techniques have changed dramatically. And I find that with everything we do is, we're on the cusp of an AI revolution, in terms of like search marketing. Every time I turn around, Google has changed something, and what worked a few months ago doesn't work today. Yeah. I went from despising Facebook to loving Facebook to having a love-hate relationship with giving Mark Zuckerberg money. But the only thing really constant is change, and you've got to be on top of this stuff, looking at what's coming on the horizon and dealing with it. What was the CEO of Intel, Andy Grove, only the paranoid survive. Master Smith and I know all the old EFC board of directors members from years ago, all wonderful people. Most of them peaked 20 years ago and then stopped learning and then ended up in a slow decline, thriving on what was, the lead of the industry at the time. But didn't keep pace. That we see that example over and over and over again. So what we're always trying to do is look over the horizon, keep pace with what's going. Same as you're doing with Atlas Software and all your other projects there. Looking over the horizon, bringing the current state of the art without the new bright shiny object that's going to be a distraction.
Yeah, that's a critical.
And that's why during the pandemic that our schools had record years. Yeah. 2019 was. We had 80% of our schools had record years in 2019. And then in the year 2020, when the pandemic hit, we know that 50% of most martial arts schools in this country went out of business. And the other 50%, or at least 45 of them, were only surviving by government subsidies, or their head was just barely above water, or they were living off credit cards or whatever. But our group, we changed what our marketing that we were doing in 2019 and how we taught the classes. We had to do a complete 180 for 2020, and we changed everything immediately. We were the first ones to go right to Zoom for our classes. We were some of the first ones to go teach outdoors, and we did free seminars on this to help our industry and show them what we were doing. And some of them took advantage of it and they were able to get by in the pandemic. But those in our group had record years. Now, their record year wasn't 50% gain on most of them. A lot of them who had record years in 19, they might have gone up 10 or 20% because of the pandemic. But for most schools to do what they did in 19, to do it again in 20 with the pandemic would have been a major accomplishment for most martial arts schools. So when this pandemic, and of course now there's a new norm, but when things started getting back to what was semi-norm, our members now were having super record years Now they were making giant gains because they were doing all this stuff during the pandemic. Plus, we got to go back and do the stuff we were doing in 19. Is why we had so many $100,000 schools, $125,000 a month grosses, because they had so much more now to stack on their plate to do.
Yeah, totally. Oh, hold on.
Oops, there we go. There you go.
Yeah,
I'm
there it
good.
is.
Yeah, I might summarize with this because I know we're probably over your
fine.
time plan here, but what I might summarize with every school is when you're running a martial arts school, when you're doing any career, any business, you want to never stop learning. Always have mentors, always have coaches, always be in a learning mode. I know for myself, I set the rule for myself well over 30 years ago that I was always going to invest at least $100,000 a year in my own development, education, whether it was academic and MBA or whether it's working with Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy or whatever it might be. And it's a good rule of thumb to put 10% aside for your own education. You know, back to the old Ben Franklin quote: "If you empty your purse into your mind will fill your purse," or something like that. But if there was 3 simple steps for martial arts schools, one is you've got to be more active in promoting your school and getting out in the community. One of the reasons I have that facade of Wall Street back there is it's a nice illustration for a Parthenon. You know, have a lot of different pillars constantly going on, community outreach, local elementary schools or local corporations, depending upon what market you're in. Have all the online, the Facebook, the Google, all the social media, all the search and so forth going on. Have lots of grassroots effort, whether it's, you know, bandit signs and rack cards or, you know, hundreds of thousands of flyers being distributed or one thing or another. One, we see broke schools mostly aren't doing any marketing, and schools that aren't hitting their potential aren't doing enough marketing, right? Number 2 is create a tremendously high value for your student. But then, you know, if you care about looking around at the other martial arts schools, that's fine. Go compare everybody else and then charge double what the next highest is, and you'll probably be fine. But you've got to create a high value and then be at the high end of the price market. And third, your biggest, highest priority is keep your students as long as possible and create the best outcome for them as possible. So, you know, our benchmarks are 2% or less per month dropout rate, $300 to $400 average revenue per student, and the third benchmark is, you know, at least for the ones in growth mode, we're looking for 100 new leads a month to turn into at least 20 new enrollments a month from all sources. So if they can kind of hit those benchmarks, and of course there's other things, leadership development, staff and everything, but they'll be on a much better path to grow the school. But, you know, most schools kind of, you know, go to their school, sit at their desk and complain they don't have enough new students, rather than take a right out the door and start beating the bushes. And, you know, we can give you all kinds of great things that work, you know, as you can. And, but not all of them are online. You know, you just can't scale enough just purely doing online stuff. But you've got to maximize all aspects of that and get out there and grow your school. So, I mean, if I had 3 simple things, it would be focus first on keeping your students long-term, get more stuff going in the community to market your school, and then number 3, provide high value and get a high revenue value at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. I think it's the fundamental disconnects that we seem to have in our industry are that, you know, if I just teach good enough, people will, you know, the world will be a path my door. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. You know, it does, but it takes too long, you die. Right? Yeah. By the time it gets to where you want it to be, you've been dead for 50 years. So it doesn't help much.
Well, there's many great referral systems you can implement, but if you have 50 students, you don't have enough critical mass to get growth with that. If I have 300, 400, 500 students, I can replace everybody I lose through internal referrals and family add-ons and so forth. But, you know, I've seen schools who, you know, are opening a new school and they think they're going to grow from referrals. Well, if you multiply 0, you still got 0. You know, you just can't do that.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Well, guys, thanks so much for the time. So martialartswealth.com gets people sort of in the funnel and understands kind of what you guys are up to. You have another mastermind meeting coming up today. Well, you do these about quarterly, right? About 4 times a year.
Yeah, it's next weekend. We do 3 or 4 times a year, and usually once a year we do something like West Point or Annapolis or Disney or the aircraft carrier or something like that. And the other couple or 3 are here in Colorado at a very high level. So 3 or 4 times a year on the actual live. But we're working with our schools every week.
Every week, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's literally like going to martial arts business school, right? I mean, this is the thing, right?
Exactly.
So
that's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, fantastic, guys. Thanks so much again for the time. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks Oliver, William, Patrick, Jim Nam. A few people popped in. I couldn't get all the comments up there. They ended up kind of like overtaking the screen. So
And Oliver.
yeah, Oliver's fantastic. Yeah. So thanks everybody so much.
Thank you, Toby, for really doing a podcast like this is so important for martial arts schools. Because the learning that you get to grow your school, you have to be seeking this stuff out. So here's a lot of information that could help a lot of school owners, and thanks to you for bringing it so they could actually take advantage of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think our clients are going to love it, and I think magazine subscribers and all the folks who are kind of following the channel, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. The link is in the description. The Martial Arts Wealth link is in the description, and so is Bob Dunn's phone number. So if you have any questions about that, you can get all that over there. All right. So thanks everybody so much.
This has been a Martial Arts Industry Innovations production, presented by Martial Arts World News Magazine.